630 for the longest time actually did not offer kids bikes. We did offer kids bikes back in 2008, and we decided to get away from it. And there's a couple reasons why we did it, went away from it, and actually now, 2018, we are getting back into kids bikes. And the reason we got into it originally is because we want to get our riders started young. Aside from, just trying to sell bikes, we really want to encourage people to keep the idea of the bike alive. I think in this day and age, bike riding is something that doesn't hold as much esteem in our society as it once did. Although it's coming back now by way of commuting and electric bikes and things of that nature. So we got into it originally because we really wanted to inspire young riders to want to get on a bike. And I think looking back personally, the first bike you ever get is an incredible gift. I would say most people can remember the first time they rode a bike or the first bike they ever got for Christmas or birthday for that matter. And so to me, I want to be a part of that story, and I love for our brand to be a part of people's story and people's journeys. And then carry them with us as a brand as they move from their kids bike up to their adult bike, and they stay with us throughout their whole life. I think that's something that made Schwinn very special as a brand is people, had been riding Schwinns back in the 50s since the day they were 5, and now they still want to ride a Schwinn. And so to me, I want to build a company with that same legacy, and it really starts with kids bikes. We got away from it because we need to find our focus. And unfortunately, in the kids sector of bikes, most people don't want to spend a lot of money on kids bikes. And that's a very fair thing to do and say, because your children are going to outgrow their bikes at some point. And a kid's bike can only last for so many years, just like a pair of shoes that you buy your 3-year-old. In 6 weeks, they're going to be wearing a different size. So nobody wants to spend a ton of money on something that your child's going to outgrow. So for 630, we're not in the business of being the lowest priced bike. And unfortunately, it made it very difficult for us to get riders onto our kids bikes, being that our prices weren't as low as many of the competitors. And I think a lot of people turn to Walmart and Target and Amazon and other less expensive places to buy, very inexpensive kids bikes, at least until your son or daughter maybe gets to about 11 or 12 or 13, and they're at a point where they can ride an adult bike that they could have for the next 5 or 6 or 7 years. And so we didn't feel like at the price points that would have allowed us to be competitive, we could make the product we wanted to make. So we stepped away from it, and we're now coming back to it in 2018 because we found an opportunity, and we were able to create a kids bike that we thought is going to give value back to the consumer. And what we've done is create a bike that actually can be assembled with no tools. And we thought this was a unique experience and something that a lot of parents would appreciate, because many mothers and fathers stay up on Christmas Eve or the night before a birthday trying to assemble their young child's bike. And we all know the pains of using tools and trying to build that toy at midnight before, so Santa can leave it under the tree. And so our new bike is going to be something called quick assembly. It will not require any tools at all. You can simply snap in every component and your bike will be fully assembled. And so while it still won't be the least expensive bike on the market, it will provide a unique value proposition to a lot of moms and dads out there. Our kids bikes differ from the other bikes we offer because our kids bikes are a little more simple and we have a little less selection, but also the major difference is we're coming out with the no tool assembly kids bike. So we're trying to do kids bike as simple as possible, more of a click and pop approach where you can get the bike, click everything in, whereas our adult bikes require a little bit more assembly with tools and fine tuning. We've found that on the kids bikes, it's not as necessary, especially for the younger riders. I mean, they're not trying to ride at speeds of 100 miles an hour. They're trying to just ride around the block with mom and dad or their friends. So we've tried to simplify the bike, make the assembly much easier, and eliminate, the maintenance of things of that nature, so the bike can last a little bit longer. And it's really easy for mom and dad to keep it in the garage and not have to worry about it. Now, again, on the adult bike, still simple, but the biggest difference is we're adding a lot more adjustment points, and there's a lot more maintenance required on the adult bikes to kind of get the performance that generally adults want out of their bike. I think 630, me or our brand can really help people looking for kids bikes because, number one, kids bikes aren't necessarily our biggest strong suit. So we, as I said, only really want to offer kids bikes to help encourage young riders to ride. But our perspective on how to fit kids bikes is not a perspective of trying to sell kids bikes, because we don't survive based on the amount of children's bikes we sell. I would simply take a step back and want to help people understand, what are you looking for your children? And the reality is do you need to spend $400 on a kid's bike? No. Do you need to spend $200? Maybe not. It really kind of depends on, number one, how long will your son or daughter have that bike for? Number two, how fast are they going to be going? Number three, how often are they really going to ride? And to piggyback off that, how many times will that bike even get used before your son or daughter stops riding that bike? And so, there's a lot of things to consider, a lot of questions to answer. While, price is generally a reflection of quality. The more you pay, generally the higher quality product you will get. High quality is not something that's essential for a children's bike. What is essential for a children's bike is safety. You do want to ensure that there's, the necessary safety requirements are met with a child's bike, especially based on what type of riding they're doing. So you probably don't want to buy the lowest quality if you feel like the brakes or something aren't going to work properly. Because obviously your child's safety is number one to any parent. So I would say when considering a kid's bike, just, make sure you really understand how your child's going to be riding it, and don't just think about spending as little money as possible. If your son or daughter is really going to do a lot of riding and you think that they're going to be flying all over the neighborhood and, hitting speeds of 15 miles an hour, I would say, don't spare any expense. Buy a more expensive bike. Make sure it's got the safety features. It's got a good brake system, and always ensure that they're wearing a helmet. If you think your son or daughter may use it one or two times and, maybe ride 2 miles an hour just down to the neighborhood park and park it there and sand's going to get all over it, without compromising, safety, I would say you can look on the lower end of the spectrum in terms of price. You might be able to consider the Walmarts and the Target type bikes for your rider's usage, but don't just go out and buy a cheap bike because you think they're going to outgrow it. That's a really bad idea. Make sure you pay attention to always keeping your child safe. So from my perspective, again, I'm saying this not because we're in this to sell a lot of kids' bikes. I'm in it to just ensure that we get as many people on bikes as possible and they stay safe while doing it.